I'm the owner director of Piper Avenue Buyers Advisory. So
Piper Avenue, clever.
Yeah,
I like that.
Take a smarter avenue,
Yeah,
right, when
that's
buying
cool.
property.
Yeah.
It really came to be. I had been a property investor for quite a while. I'd used buyers agents as well, had great experience, and I just really love negotiation and sales, and I love property in every element of it. So the philosophy around why to buy, what's important metrics, knowing your areas well, what impacts growth, that is my whole being. So that's really why I went down the path, and I used to have a lot of people asking me for help and support with it, which I was doing a lot, and then it really got to a spot where I was like, I want to be doing this professionally, and the whole goal of the business is to educate people, just provide free education around investing and changing your life circumstances around that, because I think it is such an important thing, and if you can attach yourself to an asset, you grow with the world and you grow with inflation and all the things that happen. If you're unable to do that, life does get harder as you get older.
That's actually a good point, because when we start off on our buying journeys, it's often just buy the house, move in, have your kids, that's it, and then maybe in your mid sort of 40s range, that's when you start looking at maybe one investment, but you've done it obviously a little bit differently to that. So you started a lot earlier on. Did you make any mistakes?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Your first home's not your dream home or your forever home. So if you're going to pay stamp duty and everything else to get into that, and all the mortgage costs and everything's not tax deductible, why not rent where you want to be and go and buy an investment property in somewhere that's performing? Because where you want to buy isn't always growing in value, right? So I started early. My first property was an investment property. My biggest regret in that is that I sold it. And that was just due to being younger and not having the education that I do now. I think there's so much free education out there around what to do and why. I wanted to move into another investment property and grow the portfolio. I didn't realize how equity stripping worked at the time. And I was very proud to, I'm paying for it cash. I'm paying the deposit cash instead of using equity. I just didn't really understand it. But as soon as that penny dropped, it changed a lot.
What are some of the ways you learned how to do it? Like what's some of the, without telling us everything into detail, like what's the best top 5 ways that you learned?
To learn how to do property investing?
Yeah.
I think learning how economics work, right? I think the number one thing that changed everything for myself is this simple fact: the return on asset versus return on investment. If I go and put $100,000 into the share market and I get a 10% return, I'm making $10,000. If I go and attach that $100,000 as a deposit to $1 million property and I get a 10% return, I make $100,000. So I just 10x my investment.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what changed everything for me when I really understood return on asset. So I wanted to try to get as many assets as I could through that period, and then that they grow, they lead to another one, and then it sort of gets easier, it compounds. Like share investing, it compounds quite quickly. And if you can balance yield and capital growth, so if you can get that balance right, it is really quite stable to do so, but educating yourself around money is the number one thing you can do.
Yeah, okay.
It's pivotal in every person's life.
Yes.
Money is linked to everything. So once you understand how it works, and
So if you had a buyer come to you and say, this is what I want to do, and obviously everyone has different reasons for where they want to buy, they have different needs as well. How do you decide on the suburb type or property type for each individual?
Yeah, so it's very much down to each buyer's brief is different. That's where the one-size-fits-all rule for investing isn't true. Everyone's got different serviceability, different buying budget. They can have more negative gearing than others. Some are cash deposits up front, which changes their options. Every person's different, and also what their long-term objective is and their investment horizon. If you're an older person, you've only got maybe 8 to 10 years, we're picking a completely different strategy. We're probably going to put you in a warm and a hot market to get the run quickly, and because you're going to get out on the other side. Whereas if you're a younger person and you've got your whole life ahead of you, we're going to really try to lower that risk profile in that sense. We're probably going to get in a colder to warm market. That's at the start of its cycle, so that you can have the full duration of that growth.
And what do you think, just if we get more specific into Mount Warren Park, being that is where we generally service that area, in that regard, what do you notice when it comes to investments and then owner-occupied? Have you seen a shift in anything in the recent years at all? Or?
I love Mount Warren Park.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best investment locations you can get.
Excellent.
If you can get
We
into
didn't pay
it.
him for that, by the way.
No.
No, definitely not.
And you couldn't, because the numbers tell you why that is the case, right? Super high owner occupier space. All right, that's the number one thing you want for capital growth is very strongly held pockets. When that one property finally comes up for sale, you've got tons of people wanting to move into there. That's what creates price growth. All right, simple as that. If you're investing too, you want to have an asset that's in a higher owner occ area, because when the one investment property comes up for rent, you've got more people trying to get that rent, so you can have a little bit of a higher price because people want to be in that pocket. Mount Warren Park's very interesting in the sense of there's a couple of streets. It's so nice in comparison to a lot of suburbs that are around it, and the whole area is very residential. The price point's good. You've got Windaroo just down the road. You've got Bannockburn, the shops. The infrastructure's right. It's got one thing that no one else has anymore, which is a Brody's chicken.
Yes,
That is the best thing about Mount Warren
It's
Park.
the bomb.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. But realistically, if you just drive through Mount Warren Park, all the houses are in very good condition. The development was built really well when it was done in the first place. The houses are on good land sizes, typically 700 and over, which is a great asset for anybody to have. It's real living lifestyle. You know, you're not cutting yourself into a 450 square block. I think its connectivity to major infrastructure is what makes it very unique. You've got straight out the back, you get to Tamborine. You've got 2 minutes, you're getting onto the motorway. You've got the Beanley train line, another 2 minutes down the road. Also, the best thing about why that area will grow, it's got a lot of work around it. People need jobs. You can't have an area worth a lot with no work there.
Yeah, it's got the industrial
Correct,
estate
yeah.
right across the highway.
So you got the
Yatala.
Luscombe Industrial Estate around the back. You've got the Yatala Industrial Precinct as well, which has had a lot of government investment. You've got the Coomera Connector going in on the Eagleby side of the road, which will reduce the traffic issue coming into that spot. You've got the Beanley Industrial Pocket. You've got Browns Plains. Like, you've just got so much work around here, and that really is so important for a tradie as well. Being right between Gold Coast, Brisbane, Logan, Ipswich, like, you're just in such a great spot to get to a larger market instead of, say, living North Brisbane and then having to try to get to Gold Coast. It's a large transit.
And so you would use as an example for Mount Warren Park, you would look at something for one of your buyers and go, yes, you should go and invest in there. What kind of person would that look like though for you?
A buyer that I put in Mount Warren Park is somebody who wants long-term growth, low-risk asset, and has some money to cash flow because the yields aren't that great.
Yeah.
All right, so your price point's higher, your yields are sitting in the threes, which isn't ideal for an investor. That's quite tough. But if that person was potentially a cash buyer early, so their loan amount and the interest cost of that loan is less, then it can work for them.
Yeah,
but if they were a person just wanting to buy an investment property and had used equity to do that purchase, which effectively means they're using 100% loan value ratio, then that interest cost is going to be pretty tough on them.
Yeah, okay. That leads me to another question, because we're talking about Mount Warren Park and it's been around for a while, and you were talking about the foundations of the suburb and things like that. When we look at a suburb, and we won't name any specific suburbs, but when you look at a newer suburb, when it was very first being built, lots of these type of places, they had investors buy the land, do sort of cookie cutter homes and then rent them out, and they were getting really good returns. And it was like a more entry level type of suburb. You know, obviously they pop up everywhere, so not specific, but it happens. What happens now that the market has gone up so much? Do you notice that is it reaching its limit? Are you starting to look at maybe things that you thought were a good investment in these newer suburbs and start pulling people out of them? Like, how do you decide that?
I think there's so much that goes into why an area, it can have 10 great stats and 7 fundamentals that mean we just won't buy it. I think affordability is one of the number one drivers of an area right now. You can have a great spot, but if the local infrastructure can't afford that area and the salary growth rate doesn't match it, it really peaks, right? It can't get much further. I think you're seeing a a sort of sway from the newer style property, which there is a lack of anyway. And you're seeing people come back into more neighbourhood regions already established. And the reason why is the crime rates in new development areas.
Okay.
All right. If you're seeing a lot of different developers now actually lock out through contract when you purchase the property that you cannot have it as an investment property. All right. And that's quite intentional because there's a lot of areas of Melbourne that they've done massive developments, cookie cutter blocks, and investment hotspot. Vacancy rates through the roof, houses are getting dilapidated. It's just causes problems for that whole development and ruins that brand and what they do. So I don't think there's any issue with new supply coming to market. If you go down the road from Mount Warren Park, Bannockburn, there's the estate across the road. There's still development through there, but it's got really good parklands throughout the whole thing. You've got Coles that has come in as well in the shopping centre. A lot of the rest of the land is floodplain, so it can never be built on.
Okay.
So you're actually landlocked in a sense, not by the fact that there is or isn't land, but it can't be developed on. So what you'll see over time is those pockets on the sides of the hills, they will start to become a lot denser. What's good about the newer areas that are higher owner occupier too, they're a bit higher price point, they're a little bit more affluent, and it starts gentrifying that location further.
Okay, awesome. So when you obviously have a very different variety of buyers that come to you, and you've said, you know, you choose specific areas and things like that. Do you back that? Like, is there a science to it that we don't just, you know, understand, because we obviously know the buying and selling, sure, but we focus on the selling part. Is there a science that backs, you know, what you're saying, or do you have a fail safe that goes, this is, I promise you, you know, this is going to be a good investment? There's
no promises in property, but there's drivers. Okay, and I think I said earlier, economics, macroeconomics, right, at a high level for state, LGA, general area, and then microeconomics of what's driving that particular location. You have to have drivers, you have to have affordability for an area to be able to grow. So for each person, I'm not for everyone. Like, I turn down many people who I won't suit their brief. It's just not my specialty. I know there's a better option for it, and I'll refer them to another person. And I think it's wrong for people to take on briefs that they're not suitable for. If they don't have an edge in that market, they're not going to get the best result, and you can't really take a punt with such an amount of money that a person's going to be spending on that property. The reasons why you're buying an area, we provide a lot of reports and a lot of different statistics as to why and what the drivers of growth are. A couple of key things that are really important. You want to see stock on market going down, not increasing. All right. That means there's less stock coming to market, which means the leftover stock that's there, more people are bidding on that remaining stock. You want to see days on market declining. All right, if days on market are increasing, that means that people aren't fussed over the buying. You want to be in a pressure pot area, effectively, or are trending towards a pressure pot. Vacancy rate must be under 2% for us. That's quite high. Typically, we want to see it around the 1.8 to 1.7 and under. The reason why is if we're putting an investment property in there, we want that area to have limited options so that when we put up, we're not going to have vacancy where we don't have applicants. We also sometimes advise dropping that rent rate just a little bit below market. And for one simple reason, if I've got a little bit under market, I'm going to get more people to come and want to rent the property. I now have 40 people to pick from instead of 2. Okay, so now I can choose a better tenant long term, and I think that's more of a long term strategy about having the right tenant. But if you go that little bit less, you have more options to pick from, and you can really provide better long term longevity out of the property and it being maintained well.
Right. Okay.
If we get buyers all the time, obviously they come through our opens, and the budgets for first home buyers are obviously substantially lower than a lot of other people that are coming to the market. We're getting a lot of buyers coming through with the rate of from $750 to $850. That's their budget. Where would be the best place for them to put their money?
$750 to $850 in Brisbane right now is a really tough market. I have a client right now too, actually, in this space, and it's a really tough spot. Last week we were at Marsden, offers over 600 on a property, townhouse 322. That property ended up selling for $720.
way over the mark. Yeah, it's
All
crazy.
right. And this is where first home buyer grants and government stimulation ruin what they're there to try to improve.
Yeah.
They're trying to help more first homeowners get into the market. When you provide someone 5% deposits instead of a 10 or a 20 like prior, you've now increased what they can buy and it opened up their serviceability. So if I needed 20% of $100,000, say $1 million, I needed 200,000. But now if I only need a 5% deposit, I can use 50,000 and get way more, or I can use my $200,000 to get, millions.
Yeah.
Right? So it really has opened up that price point that they can get to. Whether they can actually afford to do that, I don't think they fully understand the documents they're signing a lot of the time. But that has really moved the market heavily in the low price bracket. Yeah. For example, like I own a property in Woodridge.
Yep.
I paid $200,000 for that property only 2 and a bit years ago. That's well past $500,000 now. And if I actually listed it, it'd probably be up towards $6. Yeah. So it's not worth that. But the market is now making it worth that. Yeah. And if you look historically around the country, wherever the thresholds for the first homeowner grants get to, that's where the new baseline of the whole market gets to. Yeah.
Is that like a spillover effect from the buyers in Brisbane and Gold Coast coming into more central and west?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're seeing, you've got 2 great locations between Brisbane and Gold Coast. Like Gold Coast having incredible growth. Yeah. It is hitting affordability issues to some extent, and the development rate down there is actually phenomenal. If you drive through the Gold Coast right now, there's a new high rise going up every 3rd building. And to a point, they're actually knocking down high rises and rebuilding, which is, you never saw that prior. But between Brisbane's growth, the Olympic Games coming up, which is driving investor confidence and buyer confidence to be in the region, Logan sits in this pocket where it's sort of that last grasp of affordability. All right, and Redlands has some areas, Ipswich has some areas, but you're seeing those areas run away right now too. But that is what's great about Logan. You're between these 2 major GDP boomers, effectively. And with that migration piece coming to the area, you're seeing a lot of people moving from Melbourne, a lot of people moving from Sydney and offshore as well. But what that's driving is you're going to see a lot of investment throughout the region. You're already seeing like 1.5 billion, I believe it is, from Logan City Council in the region over their plan, right? And that's been invested quite quickly. You've got the Coomera Connector, you've got the film hub at Luscombe. So you're seeing, if you just put yourself beside 2 great people in life, you'll probably be pretty great yourself. Yeah. Logan's the same analogy. Yeah.
No, okay.
It has to lift to where the others, because that spillover effect, people are trying to buy in those other pockets. They're just getting priced out of the market, and now they're starting to move into those areas because, again, affordability and servicing.
So that will pretty much essentially happen to Logan as well. Once Logan hits that capacity, they'll push out west.
Yep.
Ipswich, Ripley, out that way more.
You're actually already seeing it through Ipswich and Ripley.
Yeah, the prices there have gone up drastically in the past 12 months.
The exact same scenario. So 2 weeks ago, Raceview, 3-bed, 1 bath, 1 garage. Yeah. That was selling for, they were 500s, 580s. It had offers over 600. We believe the true value might have sat around 615, 620 in the current market. It's off 726.
Whoa.
So what that is first home buyers going to one open home, trying, not getting a call back, I missed out. Second one, now they're like 4 weekends into doing it, just this fear of missing out relentlessly. When they get to that last one, and if there's a good sales agent on the other side, which you guys are there to represent the seller and get the most for them, so can't hate you for doing it. No. They just punt. What's my pre-approval? Boom. I'm just going to...
The whole max.
I'm just going to throw it at it.
Balls to the wall.
Is that scary though? Because when you think about it, like, is there all these government incentives to help them do that? Is it actually giving them their serviceability? Like, I suppose it is, because it's saying this is how much you can be pre-approved for. But can they actually afford it? Is this where it's at? Because the prices are going up, and obviously paychecks have sort of not in comparison.
Definitely right.
Yeah.
Simple answer is yes. I don't know how people are affording those sorts of loans with no tax deductibility in any of it. You know, if for a $900,000 loan at a mid 6%, you're looking at $5,500 a month in repayments. And I believe that's interest only.
Do you see that though as well, like with more so investors, because you deal, and I know that you're probably in a grey area where you can't give too much advice in that, you know, world, but do you see it when they come to you and they go, yep, I've been pre-approved for this, and you kind of go, okay, that's, you know, are you going to be okay to service this? Like, do you check what they can actually...
We tell them, tell them not to do it.
You would say not to, yeah.
You've got to have ethics in this industry, right? Yeah. And whether you're running a business of any format, whether that's in real estate or anything else, those people who you're servicing, you've got to be the best decision they made, not the one they tell their friends, like, I wish I never did that. Whether you bought a great property, they still put themselves in the hole.
Yeah.
You can't be a part of that. We just had one where a person was approved for $900,000. They have the serviceability for $900,000. We will not buy them a $900,000 property. And I had that conversation with them this morning. I said, we're still looking in the $750 to $800 bracket for you. We just don't believe there is any good reason for you to be buying a $900,000 property. You're on a single income, you're a year out of your apprenticeship, you're still living with mum and dad, which is great, your living costs are low, but it's going to scare you from property investing for the rest of your life when you're only getting $750 a week and you've got $5,500 a month in repayments, plus rates, plus everything else to go.
Insurance and all that
Would
stuff.
you try and find, so you're saying, yes, they can service to 900, but you're sort of saying 750, 800. Could you go even lower than that? Or, you know, would you go to maybe a unit? Would you not look in Logan? You know, could you go to another area if it is a long term for him? Sounds like he's younger, he's just, you know, starting his journey.
You move outside, it really depends on what the person's comfortable with. Everyone's limited by some form of their own belief or what they're good with. I have some buyers who just, whatever. I trust you, you've done it for me before, all good. You do what you want and I'll follow. But other buyers at different stages, and sometimes I'll impose them on this because they don't know what they don't know. And for that buyer I'm referring to, he's got a solid family structure around him. They're wanting him to get in the market, but nervous for him to make a bad decision. We're going to buy in the Brisbane to Toowoomba pocket, Gold Coast. We're going to buy in the triangle because that way they can see the property. It's not always the best. That's not going to give you the best results if you look at a national perspective, but that's what they're comfortable with. All right. And if that's their limitations, that's what we're going to work within.
Okay. And when it comes to separate to that, when we're talking about places, because I know that we've mentioned, you said to me recently that you actually do go further out than Logan, like you can find places in completely other states and things like that. So you obviously do a lot of research when it comes to not just like you do everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know, after that conversation we had, I was like, that's really interesting. I had a little bit of a sticky beat because obviously we love real estate and that's the world we live in. And some of the places were ridiculously cheap, but then they were marketed as, you know, ridiculously high rental yields, like 9% or something. And I was like, how is that even possible? Would that fall into that vacancy rate thing? Is that where that, okay, can you explain that?
One thing that's really interesting, you got to ask the question, why is the yield so high? Why is the rental value so high and the property value so low? Typically it's for one reason, people don't actually want to live there. They'd rather pay more to rent there than they would to live there. Okay, which means there's not a buy demand in the area for the housing. You'll often see that around mining towns heavily because they know it's been boom and bust. So the properties are high yielding because when it's on, they're making great money, and when it's off, they have no tenant for a year and a half. So high yielding areas don't interest me at all. I don't really, yield for me, sorry, I'll say this again. Yield is to cover expenses and balance out my portfolio. I'm not trying to get cash flow now. Say your property was positively geared by $4,000 a year and you're earning decent income, so you're going to get charged 48% tax. You get $2,000 at the end of that, right? I don't see the point in that when you can get a capital growth focused property, claim some negative gearing off of your tax, and that property goes up 10%. Say it was an $800,000 property, you just made $80,000, right? And I can strip that equity out, go and buy another property with it. That $4,000 that I made in positive gearing, I've got to pay tax on it straight away, and then I can't really reinvest it. So I don't really see the point in strong yielding properties other than for balancing your cash flow, right? And what you'll find is often strong capital growth properties have lower yields, and strong yielding properties have lower capital growth. We went through this amazing time in COVID where you got both.
Yes.
Right, but that's a nuance. It's not meant to happen that way. A good balance if you're investing is you'll see in your blue chip areas, you're going to see around the mid 3%, sort of up to the 4s sometimes. And then where the target range is that low 4s up to your mid 6s. If you're doing units, things like that, you can get higher as well. And that's just due to the fact of the affordability of that particular pocket. But one thing to remember, yields increase, right? You purchase it for $500,000 and the rent's say $500 a week. Every year that rent's going up, so that yield's improving. So whatever you're buying in now, you've got to remember you're looking at what it's going to do in future, not exactly what it's doing right now. If that area is lagging compared to the greater region in rental growth, and you see the 4 pockets around it, and they're all, $100 a week higher, that area is going to catch up eventually, especially if it's tightly held. Yeah. So yield is progressive as that property develops.
Right. So on the basis of units and townhouses, do you have any tips on buying a townhouse or a unit and what to look out for?
Yeah. You've got to investigate the strata. Yeah. So the body corporate is really important. If a lot of people don't understand what an admin fund and a sinking fund is. So an admin fund is a fund to cover the administration of the body corporate. A sinking fund is for repairs and things on the entire complex. So all the common areas and things like that. If that sinking fund doesn't have much money in it, if something happens, there's literally no money to pay for it, and that cost will get split equally between all the owners of that area. Exactly. So really understanding the body corporate is quite important. Also, is there any pre-existing issues with the body corporate? So you got to look through the minutes where you can understand if anything's sort of been put off for quite a while and is going to bite you in a couple of years' time. I know people in Sydney who having to fork out $20,000 for a body corporate issue because there's not enough money in the sinking fund.
Jeez.
And that's a newer building as well.
So how do you find that sinking fund? How much money's in there? Is it the Form 2?
Yeah.
That's come online? Yeah, okay.
So your seller's disclosure should contain all the information that you really require. Just also having a good idea of what condition that whole complex is in. Yeah. That's going to really tell you what sort of costs are going to be coming up. A lot of the properties that I have that are in a body corporate, they're quite low fees, right? And that's great because it means my holding costs are lower. But I intentionally bought in areas that the maintenance costs will always be low. They're brick, they're just solidly built. Yep. The concrete is flat, it's on level ground. There's not much gardens or arrangements to be maintained. So the things that need to be maintained are very minimal, which keeps that fund looking good. So if we want to do a new roof on the entire complex, we've got the money to do it and it increases everyone's value.
Right, okay, awesome.
Do you do the research for your buyers? Do you look at things like the minutes? Do you request them? Do you go that far?
Yep. Yeah, we review the body corporate. We look at those funds and see where they're sitting, especially previous minutes and what the agenda items were. You'll find them quite quickly through the agenda items.
We generally do the same thing as agents, but we have obviously not everyone has to. So there are agents that won't do that as well. And you have to get them yourself often as a buyer or try to research. So it's good that your company does that as well.
I think it's the most important thing when you're buying a unit or a townhouse is you're wanting to buy in a pocket that doesn't have too many in it. Yep. All right, and the number that I roughly like to work with is around that 16 mark. Less than that, I love them. And the reason why is if you're in a complex that has 40 or 50 buildings, okay, and they're all the same, effectively, when you go to market and if there's 4 others that are for sale, if you're fire selling and you really need to get out quickly, and you go, I'm happy to take 550 and I'd had mine for 600, they get to have that option. Yeah. Exactly the same. Right. So your property value can be affected so quickly by everyone else's problems in the complex.
Like one bad sale.
Well, same as when we sell in a street, we call the people that live in that street and we say, do you want to know the price? Because if we get a great price for that person, it's not just we're helping the vendor, we're helping the street.
Yep, exactly.
We've just increased the value of that street and we're telling the truth when we call them because, we have just gotten a suburb record or whatever, or street record. That's why we want them to know about it. So it would be the same situation, I suppose, with the townhouses.
Exactly right. Recent sales, affect the value going up and going down, right? No matter where that sits. And when you're in a complex setting, if people are moving quickly or getting out and they're dropping that price, it's really tough for you as a sales agent to show the value of the property. But it was worth, we sold 4 here. They're like, yeah, but you sold 3 for less than that as well. So what's important for if you're in a complex like that too is you're really, when that moment comes that they're going to buy, in a normal residential house, you've got that house and it's the only one like it. The others will be similar, normal bed settings and things like that, but they're not exactly the same. If you're going up and there's 5 others, they can really work between the 3 of you and see who's going to cave in first to the price point that they're looking for.
True.
On the flip side, it can have the other effect. You get some really good sales, it can help pull your price up. But it is not advised to be in a very high density complex.
Right.
And so when it comes to the risk factors, obviously there are things where you have to do the research, make sure that it's going to suit the buyer that you have, the investor that you have. What do you do when it comes to the risk? So you find a property, you've done all the numbers, it's great, you put the offer in. When it comes to your investor and they're on a contract, the building and pests, things like that, the finance, do you help them through that process as well?
Start to finish, right? So we're not offering on a property before we've done full DD on the property.
Okay.
I want to know there's no flood overlays, where the sewer lines are. Is there any encumbrance on the property overall or easements effectively? There's a lot that needs to be checked prior. Is there a heritage listing on the property? Is it koala sanctuary? Is there noise pollution? All these little things that people think don't matter, but in seller's disclosure, you're seeing it come out a lot more now.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you happy that they've come in then? Because they're amazing.
Yeah, I think
very transparent.
What it stops is, I used to love it as a VA because I'll be able to find issues and use them as leverage to negotiate down further. But now you know what you're getting up front, right? So Brisbane used to be a buyer beware state, and now it's not, right? And I'm glad it's not, because that way when the transaction happens, everyone's understanding of what is wrong with the property or any issues, I guess, affecting it, and you're agreeing to that up front. You don't want to see property falling off and falling out of contract, because every week it sits on the market, there's a saying, it's 10K off the property every week it sits. It's not good for people to see visually on realestate.com your property sitting for extended periods of time, because they don't know if there's something wrong with it. They don't know why it crashed, but they just don't think it was a good reason. So you really do want to do a solid transaction quickly. Don't wait for that final bid. Don't try to get one more buyer and then wasting a sales agent's time. Just try and get another 5% out of you. The market's going to tell you fairly quickly where that price point is. Your agent's going to do the rest to try to pull that number up as best as that you can. That's where the number is. If you're holding out further and further, buyers get sick of you and they go on to another opportunity.
Yeah, which is true. We've had that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
We have we've had some owners that have had the high expectation of price, and they want that price, they set on that price, but the market's telling them a completely different price.
Yeah.
And it's just the struggle of trying to get the owner to realise either, you don't sell it now and wait another 5 to 10 years, or you accept how it is at the time of the market. And
actually, that's a good question, because obviously you've got investments and you would imagine have a decent portfolio at this point for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you ever sell them now? Do you? No, you just, anything you buy you are keeping until retirement? That's the plan, or? Not
till retirement. I'm holding them until they no longer serve a purpose for me, right? The game effectively is the more, and this is in life, not just property, the more assets you have growing in value, the more that value is compounding quickly. If I own one property worth $1 million and it's growing at 10%, I'm making $100,000 a year. If I own 5 properties at the same value, $5 million, I'm making $500,000 a year. So if you can acquire the asset piece, whether that's business, property, shares, all different things, you're growing that value, and that value is growing and compounding quickly. There's no real point for me to sell, because you got a tax event that you're going to lose a significant amount of that. I can take that equity out of the property and go buy another property, right? And the key thing is inflation eats away my debt, right? And that's, I don't know if I'm buying property or if I'm buying cheap debt. And I have this conundrum in my head all the time.
It's not a bad way of putting it.
And it's something to really think about. Say I've got $500,000 of debt on a property right now. and the property is worth $1 million. If that property does a doubling cycle and does 3, for example, over 30 years, it does 3 doubling cycles. That's worth multiple millions now. That 500K debt is still the exact same money, right? That hasn't increased with inflation. That stayed exactly the same. And I'm going to be paying it off with 30 years from now's money that's hyperinflated from where it sits right now. So what is now $700 is going to be, $1,400 in the future. So I'm using that money to pay down this debt.
Okay, so leads me to my next question then. So when we first started this podcast, I said to you, okay, there are lots of buyers that did what they thought they were supposed to do. Young, married, had their child, bought one property, got into the market and went, yes, I've succeeded. And you've obviously explained how that can be, it's an asset. It's not actually, obviously you're making
dream.
Money, but yeah. So let's just say one of these people is listening right now, right? They've got, 200K in there, sitting in their equity now. They've had their property for a couple of years and they go, we really want to do something. We've got some equity in there. 2-point question. 1, is it smart for them to pull it now with is there a range of equity that you look for to say, is it worth it? Do you get them to go to a broker first? And then 2, if it is, do you then help them work out if they can actually service, you pick a property because they've put everything they had into this one property. They're probably almost maxed, because they've, as we know, borrowed as much as they could. So how do you help them instead of having this potentially money just sitting there not doing anything?
First, if you can't cash flow what you're going to do, it's a great thing to do. That's going to send you broke. Not worth doing at the beginning. But there is a range with, tax benefits and the way that you're structuring cash flow and how things improve, it gets better, right? Your rents go up. It gets better. It gets easier. If you're in a position as a person with some equity in your house, you have money sitting on the table. I don't recommend for people to exceed their LVRs very high. You don't want to have that ratio too high unless you are an aggressive investor. I know people who are like 90, 95% on all properties. That's too close to the red line for me. I think if you're taking it up to 80% loan value ratio, I think that's a very comfortable spot. You're wanting to take out enough equity to cover your costs and maybe a little bit of cash flow on that property if it's negatively geared as well. But the reality is, if you are buying another property, you're buying another asset that's growing. Simple as that. So I go back to the same point. You want to have as many things growing. Okay. If you look at the upper middle class, lower class, think of a fishbowl, right, and put floaty ducks on the top and a little bit of water, and then you put little people in the bottom. If you can get onto a house, you're jumping onto one of those ducks, right? The duck is an asset. Then you have stimulation come in from the government. Then you have first homeowners grant, and they just keep on pumping this money into the economy, and that water rises, the assets sit on top of that inflation and go up with it, all right? And the problem is that gap between the people at the bottom, they're swimming hard trying to get onto these assets, right? Trying to get onto that little ducky. And it gets to a spot where the gap is so big, they're not.
Yeah.
All right?
It's unachievable.
Yeah, it's really about trying to get yourself onto an asset because you want to be hedged with inflation, not against inflation, all right? If you've got money sitting in your bank, it's eroding at the rate of inflation and sometimes a little bit more. Yeah. So by putting that same money onto an asset, that's now moving with it.
So a good question to ask is, let's say, you're fresh out of school, you've worked a job for a couple of years, you've got, I don't know, 60 grand saved up, 60, 70 grand saved up, you go to get your first home loan, and let's say I come to you with, I got granted 850 grand. What would you tell me, and where would you tell me to buy?
How old are you?
24.
You're 24. I would look at your cash flow first, see what you can actually cover as negative gearing. I'd want to understand your investing appetite. I don't do any high risk stuff at all. Medium is even high risk sort of for us overall. But basically I'd probably want to pull your number down a little bit. I wouldn't probably go up to the 850 mark. I'd probably be trying to buy for you around the 650 mark, maybe even at the 600 point, because then we're at a 10% loan value ratio, and with particular lenders we can get no LMI, all right? And then we'd be looking completely outside of Brisbane.
Yeah.
We'd be going to another state that has good growth metrics towards it. We've got good yield that's fairly balanced for you in that first stage. And we would buy it, set and forget.
Cool. Nice.
So what I was talking about before with the buyers that really don't know what, and yes, obviously they'll go to brokers and things like that. Do you just let them have a meeting with you and say, look, we're very early on. We've never invested ever. We've just bought a property. That's it. Do you have those first conversations before they even go to brokers? Would you advise people to come and just have a chat with you and you give them examples of what that can look like before they set themselves up?
When you're building a property portfolio, having a good buyer's agent, a good broker, and a good accountant are key, right? They all can't work on their own, right? If I'm trying to do the best result to get a good yield and the accountant's like, well, we don't want yield, we want capital growth. And the broker's like, well, no, this isn't how we structured it. Everyone can do a good job in their own right, but if they're not working together, you're not getting the best result overall.
That's good advice.
And you've seen so many people go, I got a great result out of this property, but I bought it in the wrong structure. Like I bought it in my personal name, I should have bought it in trust. Now I've stopped my serviceability. So I typically like people coming to me at that first point. I direct them to mortgage brokers who are experienced investors, right? There is a guy for everything. There is people who would get you the best rate on your normal owner rock. There are people who are incredible for commercial. There are people who are great at scaling portfolios. Right? That's so important. A mortgage broker is so key to growing a property, because if you can't get servicing and they can't help you get better rates and keep on improving your position, you're not going to grow. Right? The access to money is the biggest thing overall. So yeah, I like people coming to me at the start. I don't like dealing with brokers or accountants who I'm educating. Really frustrates me, because these people are giving advice, and
I mean, it could stop the process too, couldn't it? If you're hitting a wall.
It's based on their experience that they will share, right? So it's such a key thing. If you're going to use an accountant and you're wanting to grow a property portfolio, you got to use an accountant who's probably grown a property portfolio, really understands it. How do I maximize your deductions? How do we maximize your structures? Have a great relationship with the mortgage broker. So, hey, if we do it in this structure, we'll get our serviceability capped. If we do it in this structure, it'll be positively geared, and then we can keep on growing through that entity. It's so key to have all three working together.
No, that's great.
I take a lot of direction from the mortgage brokers often, because we'll look at a person's position. Once I understand that serviceability, I'll often talk to the mortgage broker and go, hey, for this person, we both know this guy is a young bloke. How about we just try to keep this range? We'll pull that brief down a little bit, and then we're going to go for here. What sort of benefit can we get if I get this price point and this yield? What other lending options can you get? And he goes, oh, okay, perfect. Well, I can go to this lender then, and we can do it that way. Again, you've got to be very immersed with each other to get the best outcome for your client.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So key tip, find a good broker.
Yeah. That
100%.
suits what you.
That suits
what
you
you're
want to do with your
actually
lifestyle.
doing. Yeah.
You've got different ends of that, right? Like, say you've got BAs who have grown 150 property portfolios. That's at a different level. You know what I mean? The mid-range guys are people I'm finding to be incredibly effective right now. Same with mortgage broking. Like, there's one gentleman who I refer to mainly now, simply because he's grown a massive portfolio himself. He did it on his own accord. He never used buyer's agents. He understands lending policy at a spurious rate.
Amazing.
And our conversations, most people are talking about rugby or footy. We are talking about a particular bank, and their policy allows you to do this, this, and this. And if you're a business owner, you only have to show 3 months of financials with these guys, not 12 months with these guys.
Wow, that's pretty good.
This unlocks your next step, and property investing is all about unlocking that next step. How do I move to that next step? But you've got to build it in a way. If you negatively gear yourself, you just buy capital growth, you get so far down that it can topple over and you get crumbled by the cash flow. All right, so a real simple strategy for building a property is capital growth asset, yield asset. Just think of it as foundation building, all right? And then you do it again, because all the yield is going to improve across that whole property. The top yielding asset is just helping fund the negative position of the other two, and then you basically just do that again on repeat. If you get too far capital growth focused, an interest rate change, boom, the whole thing falls over. Right? If it's yield, you're not getting growth, so you're just getting good yield, but it's not really worth it.
Yeah, the money aspect. Awesome.
Anything else that you...
Any quick tips?
Let me look quickly.
Yeah, have a quick look.
It's a good part about the broker though, because they do, you know,
it's a very good
they
point.
work close with the banks, and if you can get close
I've
with
used
them,
3 or 4, and the difference is astounding between,
Yeah.
you know, the one I have now is brilliant.
Yeah.
Owner-occupied purchasing, but she's brilliant.
Property tax rent fastest and affordable corridors. Do you want to talk about rent vesting? Yeah?
Do that, yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes, is that okay? Can you do it quickly, or should
Yeah.
we do it into another one? Yes, good?
Up to
So-
you. Up to you. 5.
Say 5 minutes, then we've got 5 minutes left?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Do you want to talk more about local area then?
no,
if that's
you
the
do
case.
that. You do about that.
So your question could be,
Yeah.
you advise rent vesting, why is that?
You do it, because I've talked heaps.
What am I saying?
Go.
What am I saying?
You promote rent vesting,
Yeah.
why is that?
So you promote rent vesting. Why is that?
I think rent vesting is a really smart option because people can't afford their dream home early. So why go and spend money on a property that isn't what you're going to want? Go and rent where you want to be, right, at the right price point, and you've got no other outgoings. You're only paying the rent. You're not paying the insurance, the council rates, any of that. Use that same money you have and go and buy in 2 great locations, right? Let them grow, tax deductible in the way that you structure it as well. And over time, they will grow to a point where you could sell them both down and then buy your dream home.
Yeah.
I think buying into an area for the sake of buying into an area that you're really unhappy with it from the moment just to be in the market, you don't need to do that in your own place. Okay, you can go and rent somewhere. Tenants are very well protected. You know, it's not, the number one thing I hear is, oh, I'd hate to get kicked out. It's like, it's pretty much impossible to kick a person out if a person's a good tenant,
Unless
right?
you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, unless you're significantly doing the wrong thing. So it's actually a very safe option. If you don't know where you're going in life, like if you're in your 20s, in your 30s, you don't know where you're going. Life can change, and rent vesting allows you a lot of flexibility to go, you know what, don't like this area anymore. I got a new job over here and I want to save a bit of money on travel. I'm going to move to that location. You get a new girlfriend, she lives on the north side. Yeah. You can move there. But if you own a place here and you've met a girl and she lives on the north side, and now the distance is becoming a problem, you have to sell and go through a sales agent fee, everything, and then buy again. So rent vesting is really suitable for scaling properties. It is the best thing you can do if you're wanting to scale a portfolio, is not own your own home. A really interesting point is a house is not an asset, right? The definition of an asset is something that provides you income. Your house is a liability. It actually costs you money. It's just a liability that also goes up in value. Of all the liabilities you'd want to have, that'd be one of them. But the real goal in life is to have more assets and less liabilities. So if you can stay renting for a while or stay living at home with mum and dad, I see young investors, I'm talking in mid-20s with up to 10 properties, good cash flow, still live at home with mum and dad and plan to for another 5 to 10 years. Wow. And that's simply because they chose to sacrifice that feeling of, I've got a place and now I'm going to do it up. It wasn't what I wanted, but it got me in the market. It allows you to keep scaling the portfolio.
It's very clever.
That is clever.
I mean, if you were younger and you wanted to live near the city or live near the Gold Coast, there's no way, if you've just started your journey and you're in your 20s, unless you've got an amazing career with a massive price point, wage, you couldn't buy there. So you'd buy, out in the middle of nowhere away from your friends and have to travel and things. So yeah, it makes very good sense straight
Often where you want to live is too expensive for you to buy. All right, but you can rent there and you can afford to rent there. So don't stretch yourself out to a spot where you can't live a comfortable life because you bought a property you couldn't afford in that location. Go and spend that money in a couple of locations, and where you want to buy, typically where you want to live, isn't the best nationally for growth. All right, so if you're buying for the purpose of investment, don't look at the areas you know. Where your mum and dad said to go, it's already gone. They don't do this every day. If you start opening your eyes up to a national look to see what areas are in cycle, what's coming out of cycle, Brisbane's having really strange things right now because its growth rate's actually declining on itself, right? So it's still growing and at great numbers, but it's actually declining on its own rate from the past few years. You're seeing other markets come into cycle right now and starting their evolution up. So
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
great.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
I
Appreciate
loved
your
it.
time.
Thank you very much,
you.
man. Good
Thank
to meet
you.
Good to meet you.
Cool. Thank you.